Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to tell you, today I want to talk about the book, The Time in Between by my favorite author, Kristen Ashley. So here's the deal. I finally read this book. What happened was this book came out on August 29th, and it is the third and final book in Kristen Ashley's Magdalen series, which is a series set in Magdalen, Maine. Because it was the last book in the series, because I knew I wanted it in physical form and I knew it was the last book in the series, I went ahead and purchased the 3-book box set directly from the author. So that delayed in me getting the book. I didn't get the book probably until mid-September. And then I was entrenched in this happy hollow read thing where I was reading only thrillers and horror novels. So I've been watching, the reviews come in and other fans of Kristen Ashley talk about this book, and it's been like, oh, come on. I just need to read it. Well, finally, I took it with me on my wedding trip. And let me tell you, it's the perfect book to read when you're on a road trip to go get married. The Magdalen series is all about closing one chapter of life and beginning a new one. That is the common thread of these 3 books. And all of the heroes and heroines in these books are more mature than your typical romance novel. These are people who are either in the twilight of their 30s or the dawn of their 40s. And so, incidentally, I'm finding these people way more relatable these days than I ever have in the past, because I'm right there with them. I remember when I first read The Will, which is the first book in the series, I remember being surprised by it, and maybe I just hadn't broadened my horizons enough throughout the romance genre, but I had never read heroes and heroines that were older. Reading romance novels always feels kind of like reminiscing once you are of a certain age. So one of the great things about this author, one of the things that I like so much about her, is that her characters are even more relatable because they're not necessarily characters that are always at the beginning of their lives or in their first major romance or in their, you know what I mean? These are characters who've done it right, they've done it wrong, they've learned a lot. It's time to start over. The Time in Between is the story of Katie and Court. This is a second chance romance story. They had a brief but passionate love affair when Katie was 23. And unbeknownst to her, Court was an undercover cop. He was deep undercover. He was not able to tell her the circumstances. And so when she found out, it kind of blew up. That was Court's betrayal of Katie. Immediately after finding out about Court, she turned to a man that she'd sort of formed a tentative friendship with through her workplace. He kind of swooped in and rescued her from this heartbreak. And he did it in a purely innocent way where he wanted her to fill a void in his own family. He wanted to adopt her. He wanted to bring her into a supportive family because her family was shit. So he wanted to adopt her and take care of her and care for her and show her like the definition of a true family. Well, she refused to be adopted. So in order to give her access to the things that she could have had he adopted her, the alternative was to marry her. So when Court came back for her, he sees Katie engaged to be married to a man who's like 30, 40 years older than her. And so that was Katie's betrayal of Court. After Katie's adoptive father slash husband, which sounds way worse than it is, trust me. After he dies, it's his dying wish that Katie uproot her life in Denver and go to Maine, where her adoptive father has done all of this work to keep tabs on Court and Katie's brother. Turns out they're both living in Maine. So his dying wish is that Katie goes and resettles and begins the next chapter of her life in Magdalen. So that's where our story begins. This is the perfect book to take with you if you are in my situation. As much as it kept taunting me, sitting there looking at me like, you haven't read me yet, everything worked out as it should have, because I was on a road trip to get married, reading the sweetest book I've ever read. Like I said, the series is all about ending one chapter and beginning another chapter. And not to get too personal, but this isn't my first marriage. I was married before, and it was not good. My current husband was also married before, and it was equally not good. Basically, both of us have made mistakes. We've chosen poorly. We've taken the wrong path. And a book like Time in Between, the most powerful message that it contains is that it's never too late for fairy tales. It's never too late to reinvent yourself or redesign your life. And that's what these characters do in all three of these books. I gotta tell you, this was literally the sweetest book I've ever read, toothache sweetness. And coming off of a month where I read only thriller and horror, it was a shift. It was a change. It was almost too sweet from my perspective at the time. I don't think I've ever read a more heartwarming book than this one. There's a lot of angst and bitterness that these two have to work through when they meet up again in present time, when Court learns that Katie has come to live in his town and he feels betrayed, and he has this perception of her that she's a gold digger, and so there's a lot of angst that I really liked. If you do love that sinking feeling in the pit of your stomach when somebody gets emotionally wounded or hurt, you're not going to get that all the way through this book. You'll get it at the beginning, but you won't get it all the way through this book. There were 3 things I really, really liked about this book, or that I thought this book benefited from. The first is true of nearly every Kristen Ashley book, and that is the supporting characters. The supporting characters are so three-dimensional and amazing, and they're either funny or they're lovable, or they're, something about supporting characters in Kristen Ashley novels, you just want to reach out and claim them as your own support system, as your own backup, and as your own BFF. And this book was no different. This book happened to have, on Court's side, a group of friends, and on Katie's side, a group of people who had become her family. The second thing that I loved is sort of an extension of that, and that is that by the time Katie and Court reunite, Court has had a child with another woman. As a side note, my favorite line in this entire book is before they've resolved all of their issues, Katie says to Court, "She has your eyes." And Court says, I'm paraphrasing because I don't want to throw it out there, but Court says, "Yeah, well, she'd have your eyes if things didn't get so messed up." It's he didn't, but he did. He did say that. That's my favorite, zinger, one-liner of the book. But anyway, so Court has had a child with another woman, and the circumstances surrounding that are not all pretty. Basically, he was deceived into fathering that child. But in present time, the easy thing to do would be to generate conflict around this baby mama. it doesn't happen. You would expect a large conflict to revolve around the ex and the new woman, right? The ex woman and the new woman, and yet Kristen Ashley has written an ex girlfriend, mother of Court's child, who is actually really cool and really a good person. It's not fake. It's not overly cool. This woman feels very real, but she still feels like a good person. She still feels like the kind of person that you want to like instead of hate because she's the other woman in Court's life. You know what I mean? That will never go away because he shares a child with her. It would have been so easy for Kristen Ashley to make her the source of some cliched conflict, but she didn't. So excellent. That I love it. Now that's my second. The third thing that I really love about the time in between, and now I've forgotten what it was. Oh, the third thing that I really loved about the time in between is the crossoverness. I love it. So I've talked till I'm blue in the face about Kristen Ashley's series and the Kristen Ashley universe. In this book, Court is a former co-worker. Stay with me now. Court is a former co-worker of Malcolm Nightingale and Tom Savage. Who are those people, you ask? Why, those are the fathers of Lee Nightingale and India Savage, our original rock chick and her original hot bunch guy. Everything sort of ties together in this weird, like, beautiful, I don't know if she plans this shit or if it's truly just the cosmos. Indy and Lee and Hank and Roxy and Allie and Ren, a good group of my favorite rock chicks, appear in this book. There's nothing sadder, right, than loving something that comes to an end. Book series, like if you love them and you're invested in them and then you know you're never getting any more of them, like think of how you feel when your favorite band breaks up. Thinking that I would never hear another song from Breaking Benjamin, so sad. Turns out, I mean, they got back together. It's all good. They're making new music. But anyways, that's how it feels when you are in love with a group of characters and you just don't want to lose them. You want to keep them forever. And then the author ends your series. That's it. The only reprieve and satisfaction and like resurrection of those feelings that you're ever going to get is either if you either reread the books that you've read before, or if your author is badass enough to take those characters and to throw them into another book. Just cameos, just sprinkling them here and there to remind you how much you love them and never want to lose them, and how you know they live on. That's the time in between. I know it's a huge pendulum swing from horror to contemporary romance, but that's what happens here. That is the craziness that is this channel and the chaos that is my taste. I don't know. So that's it. That's all I have for the time in between by Kristen Ashley. Thank you so much for taking time out to watch this discussion, review, talk, whatever you want to call it. It's just me telling you that I read another book. That's all these are. If you've read it and you want to talk about it, or if you have questions about it, or if you have anything else you want to chat about, just leave all that stuff in the comment section below. I would love to hear from everybody. Thank you so much for watching, you guys, and I will see you all very soon. And funny story. So for those of you who don't know, my husband and I got married in Vegas, and Kristen Ashley lives in Phoenix. So I ordered this book from Kristen Ashley and it came from Phoenix to Michigan. And then me and this book got in the car and we drove to Tucson, Arizona. And then on our way to Vegas, we drove through Phoenix. So the book went back to Phoenix, then it went to Las Vegas, then it went back through Phoenix, then it went up to Colorado, Denver, Colorado, which incidentally Kristen Ashley has also been a resident of, and then it came back to Michigan through, for a little bit, Indiana, where Kristen Ashley was born and raised. So it was like this particular copy of this particular book has been on a journey representative of its author. But anyways, that was all coincidence. I just realized it when I was in the car, and I thought it was kind of funny, and it made me giggle to myself.